they're amazing. It is soup night in our house, and so every time I make a fresh soup, I like to have some sort of fresh bread, whether it's a biscuit or cornbread or sourdough. And today I am making my sourdough garlic butter dinner rolls. So these are nice and soft and fluffy. They have this yummy buttery garlic sauce on top. They're amazing, and they're sourdough, so they're healthy for you. So here's how I make it. You're actually going to start this the night before with 1/2 cup of fed and bubbly sourdough starter. You'll add in 6 tablespoons of melted butter that's cooled slightly so it's not too hot. Then 1 large egg, 1 teaspoon of dry Italian seasoning, and then 2/3 cup of warm water. Then you're going to mix everything up and then slowly start adding in the flour. It's going to be about 3.5 cups. You don't want it to be too sticky. And you can tell I'm doing it the night before because I am wearing my bathrobe rolled up. But that's one of the best things about this recipe. You can do a bulk of the work the night before, and then the day of, it's really simple to put together. Then I switched to using a spatula just to make sure it's easier for everything to combine and everything gets off the sides. You mix it all together, and then you're going to start to flour your hands and start kneading the dough. And you don't have to knead it too much. You really just want to make sure all of the ingredients are combined and mixed well. An option would be to do it in a stand mixer, but like I said, I was doing it at night, and the last thing I wanted to do was drag out my stand mixer. So you'll just roll everything into a ball and then put it in the bowl, cover it with some saran wrap, and let it sit and ferment overnight. Okay, so my dough has sat and it has risen a little bit, so it's kind of puffy, which is nice. The first thing I'm going to do is take my cast iron skillet, which is what I'm going to be using to bake them. I'm going to preheat it, get it nice and warm, and I'm going to melt a little bit of butter in it. That way it doesn't stick. If you don't have a cast iron skillet, or if you want to bake your bread or your rolls in, like a casserole dish, go ahead and take a little bit of butter and grease that too to make sure that the bread doesn't stick. And while that's melting, all I'm going to do is take this dough. I don't want to punch it down and really deflate it all the way, because sourdough, since there's no actual yeast in it, well, there's no commercial yeast, it's going to take a lot longer to rise. So I don't want to punch it down and completely deflate it like you would with some doughs. So I'm just going to roll them into bowls, and I'll set them aside for now. And this is how I roll them into balls, because it's a little bit sticky. Sourdough can get sticky. I just sort of pinch them together and turn them around. And you can make them whatever size you want. I want mine a little bit smaller because then I can give the kids 2 or 3 and they feel like they're eating more. Okay, the butter is melted. I'm going to take my cast iron skillet off the pan. I'll take my cast iron skillet off the stove. And I'm just going to swirl the butter around. Set it there. And I'll go ahead and place the sourdough rolls into my pan. Right, once I put the dough balls in there, I'm going to cover this and set it aside somewhere a little bit warm so they can rise just a teeny bit more. Again, when you use sourdough basically captures the wild yeast that's in the environment. All right, I just wanted to hop on because my camera battery died as I was talking about wild yeast. So I finished rolling the rest of the dough balls and I put them in the cast iron skillet, and I just have them sitting on the stove because it's nice and warm there. We're gonna let the natural sourdough yeast just work to raise these dough balls. I covered them with a little bit of plastic wrap, and that way it'll prevent any sort of film from forming on top of the sourdough. And then I'll come back and show you what I do next. All right, now it's time to make the best part of the whole dish. We're gonna make the buttery topping. Whoops. Try to do this without cutting off my finger. So what you're going to do is cut up 4 garlic cloves. And again, this is assuming you like garlic, because 4 cloves of fresh garlic can be a lot. What I'm going to do is saute it a little bit just to get some of the bite out of the garlic, but keep the really fresh, real garlic flavor. So this is how I'm gonna do that. I just put a small saucepan on the stove over medium heat and then added 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And then I took a spoon and broke it into chunks so it would melt a little bit more quickly. And then I added in the minced garlic. And if you decide you wanted to use the garlic powder instead, now would be the time to add that in. And then with a spoon, I'm just going to stir everything up, make sure the butter melts evenly. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of the dried basil and a little bit of dried oregano and just a pinch of salt, and I'm going to stir everything up to make sure it's even. And when you cook garlic, you want to make sure you keep an eye on it because it burns really, really quickly and it does not taste good when it's burnt. So keep moving your pot or keep stirring the pot to make sure it just cooks and softens up a bit rather than burns. All right, my garlic butter topping is ready. And all I'm going to do is take it off the heat and slowly, I'm going to start by brushing it over the tops of the raised rolls. And you could probably just pour it if you wanted to, but I just like to brush it at first because I want to make sure that every single surface of the bread possible has as much of the butter and garlic and herbs as I can possibly get. So I'll just start by brushing it. And then once everything's had a nice little bath in this butter herb mixture, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pour the rest of it over the top. It smells so good. All right. And again, I used oregano and basil in this recipe. I think that fresh rosemary would be really, really good, but currently I am trying to grow my rosemary bushes, so I don't want to cut too much off of them. Hopefully it'll be time to prune them soon so I can get, I would love to have giant, just big bushes of rosemary all over the house, or all around my garden, but we're not there yet. My rosemary plants are pretty small, so we're gonna do some baby steps. Anyway, my dinner rolls have been bathed in garlic buttery goodness, and they are raised. I have my oven preheating at 350, so it should be ready soon. And the last thing I'm gonna do is take a little bit of fresh Parmesan cheese and I'm gonna grate a little bit over the top. Not too much because I don't want it to overpower everything. Oops. Again, you can use grated, pre-grated Parmesan cheese. I just like a teeny little bit over the top to give it a little extra flavor. And as it's in the oven, it's gonna brown up a little bit and I don't want it too brown. That's it, it looks amazing, it smells so good. I'm gonna go ahead and pop it in the oven. All right, it's been about 20 to 25 minutes and I pulled the garlic butter rolls out of the oven. They smell ridiculously good. And it's super hot right now, but I am really restraining myself because all I want to do is reach in and eat all of these. So they don't really brown up all that much on the top. If you want them to brown a little bit, you could brush a little bit more melted butter on the top and put it on broil for just a couple minutes. I really keep an eye on it. I always tend to burn stuff. I forget it when I have it in the broiler. But anyway, these, they rose a little bit more in the oven. So if you remember when I first put them in, the little dough balls didn't really touch. But now you can see that they got bigger and they're puffier and they're all nice and squishy. And I'm so excited to dig into these tonight. So tonight we're having them with the broccoli cheddar soup that I posted the other day. They would be good with pretty much anything, I think. Now, if you don't have sourdough, you could look up some other recipe for a regular dinner roll and make that. And if you want a super shortcut way, I don't know what they're called, but if you go to the grocery store in the freezer section, they have these little dough balls, and I think they're called like Roadhouse rolls or like the Parker House rolls, something like that. But basically all it is bread dough, and it's a little frozen ball, and you could do the same thing that I just did, just using those. So you'll want to follow the directions on the back of those bags. I think you have to thaw them out overnight, and then from that point you can just pick up from where I was putting them into the skillet and letting them rise. And then you can just top with the garlic butter sauce, or put whatever herbs you want. If you wanted to do a little bit more, not quite so Italian, you could not do the garlic and you could just do plain butter. I bet it would be delicious. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed the recipe. And if you do make it and you try it out, then leave me a comment below, let me know how you like it. If you want to follow along with my food and homeschool and just life journey, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I'm at chasing.kiwis. And you can also check out my website, which is www.chasingkiwis.com. Thanks so much and have a great day.